Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars On The Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup, where we look back on a weekend packed full of motorsport. Although it wasn't that packed, but it was incredibly exciting. We head to the USA for Hypercars at Road Atlanta and NASCAR, always NASCAR, at Charlotte. Then we go to Japan for SuperFormula. We were just talking about that off air. Australia for Supercars and Portugal for Superbikes.
A lot of super there. A lot of super there.
Yeah, a lot of super, wasn't there? We normally start with news, but we're going to go to news second because first, we need to go no further than Brands Hatch for the most dramatic motorsport anywhere in the world by a mile. Probably the most dramatic race, certainly last lap that I've seen in years and years and years of watching motorsport, where the British Superbike Champion was crowned. And it was just, well, you watched it, I watched it, I saw your tweets. It was, what a weekend of motorbike racing.
It wasn't just the last lap. You know, this raging battle, these two contestants that turned up, Tommy Bridewell and Kyle Ryde. Ryde turned up with, what was it, a 4-point championship lead. And actually on the Friday, they had a first race in the wet, and they both sort of were a bit struggling because Danny Kent won the race. I'd give Danny some credit before we go on because it was his first win in 100 starts. And he's had this terribly troubled life and upbringing because we always forget when we're looking at all these Moto3 boys and raving about Alonso's and everybody else now that, you know, we had a British Moto3 champion in 2015 with Danny Kent. And he got up to Moto2 and had 2 or 3 bad seasons. Then he got into a really bad way. He was arrested for carrying a knife. There were some people around. He ended up in prison for I don't know how long it was. Like he got 4 months or something. I wrote it down somewhere. And so he's had this life, and he's got back into Superbikes, and fought his way back to the top. So really quite an emotional win for. He's now 30 years old. You know, quite an old man with a wiser head on his shoulders, let's say, than the young kid that won the Moto3 championship. Anyway, so Kyle and Tom, I forget where they finished. They finished sort of second and fourth in that first race on the Friday. And it meant that Bridewell now had a 4-point championship lead. I think he twisted it round on 1 point. I've got me 0.6. It was that close. Anyway, basically, it was turning out to be the Ryde Bridewell show. And in both the 2 races on the Sunday, they both got to the front, left the pack behind. And it was just both races. I watched the first one, which is the Super Bowl race, they call it, a shorter race. And they were just overtaking every opportunity. There was no sort of wait and see. I'll leave it to the last lap, mate. I'll wait and see where he's weak and I'm strong. And they've got different riding styles, which again is the part about motorbikes that excites you because you see the human being. And this is what we've lost in Formula One. We lose the little driver's little helmet goes more and more down into the car. So there's no character anymore of a leaning head or a different style or even having the same crash helmet every week so you can recognise Formula One drivers. And Ryde's got this style where he often his outside foot comes off the peg, which terrifies me. I know a few riders do it because obviously all the weight's on the inside peg.
Balance, yeah.
But it looks like he's slipped off.
It's different. He's a newer rider. He's a more modern rider. So he's got more modern techniques, keeps it a bit tighter and leans over and gets the elbows and knees quite tight together.
Everything, yeah. I think he came from off-roading, Supercross, and I think he did a bit of that early on. So he's got quite a wild riding style. But these bikes, the other thing was Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. That helped. Again, you've gone to a proper racing circuit where the danger is close, the barriers are close, there's a bit of grass,
narrow track,
and undulating, and they have a bike can overtake about 6 or 7 points each lap, and they were doing it almost every lap because bikes are narrow. You can't block a bike that easily because you've got to leave 3 feet, and they're going to overtake you up the inside. And this battle went on, and they're going past the start-finish line, 160 miles an hour, and some bumps, and the flipping things are weaving and and
I was scared stiff watching it.
I know. I was like, clearways, because getting your throttle on through clearways, the road dips away in the middle, and there's been some horrible accidents around there. And these two, you know, Tommy Bridewell in the Honda with a much more traditional sort of riding style, looks very calm. He looks a bit larger on the bike, whereas Kyle Ryan was tapped away. So again, you've got these characters evolving. And again, you talk about stories, you know, the background, which I think sometimes you need to know to really appreciate, because Tommy Bridewell, his elder brother, Ollie, they both started Superbike racing, and his elder son was killed back in 2007 when he was 21 and Tommy was 18. And they're both in the same team. They both just started Superbikes. There's a test day at Mallory Park, really wet, wasn't in a race or anything. Had a high side, I believe it was a high side anyway, because he landed and broke his neck and sadly passed away at the age of just 21.
Wow.
So Tommy's got that, and you see Tommy on the grid, you know, for both the Sunday races. You know, he's got the visor up, he's looking up, he's praying, he's thinking of his brother, even though that's, you know, what, 14 years ago or something now. So there's all that.
I bet it seems like 14 seconds ago to Tommy.
Yeah. So Tommy's always carried this, you know, his elder brother on his shoulders all the way through his career. Of course, he's reigning champion. He won it last year on the Yamaha, which Ride was on his bike, wasn't it? Was a Ride? Yes. Bramble? Yes, I think Tommy won it on them. So he's now with Honda. But this battle just raged, and it was the fact there was only two of them that made it better. You know, nobody else was there. There was nobody else in shot most of the time after about 5 or 6 laps, and it was always the same spots. You know, Ride would often overtake down the main straight in the dip or the slipstream through that really quick, you know, Hawthorne's corner, which you've driven round, you know what a fast sweeping corner it is, and then they'd always run a bit wide because they did the outbreak, and then of course the cutbacks would go on and then overtake at the next bend. And every time if Ride was leading the Sterlings, Bridewell seemed to have this knack of breaking late into the tight left-hander, would dive back in front of him because he
But I think it's important to mention that the first race, the shorter race on the Sunday, Tommy Bridewell seemed much better. It seemed like he was just picking his moment, and he just seemed like he was in much more control. So it looked like he was going to take that through to the final race. And when he caught Kyle Ride up because he had a little bit of a breakaway, you just thought, it's going to be the Tommy Bridewell show. Well, I did anyway. Yeah. And it was anything but. It was, like you said, it was just nip and tuck and overtaking every opportunity.
In the short race, I think Bridewell's holding it. I think he kept his tyres a bit longer because Carl's slightly backstepping out. And I think the longer race, Bridewell's tyres also went off towards the end. So I think they had similar lack of grip towards the end of the 20-lapper. I just need, I've never seen everything so dramatic, you know, in a motorsport world, you know, for years. Yeah. And I know they've had some, you know, last round wins in champion touring cars, you know, but it's usually, you know, it's all settled with a couple of laps to go. But it was just the way they were at it and overtaking so often. And, you know, Tommy at the end came up and hugged Carl and, you know, said, you know,
I know, what a lovely thing. Really nice, you know, because that takes a real man. You've just lost the championship by a point. By the way, incidentally, last year, Tommy won it by half a point. So 2 championships over 2 years have been won by 1.5 point difference, which is just bonkers. There can't be any championship in the world like that. And respect to the guy to straight away stopped. And of course, Carl was in tears and Tommy stopped and congratulated him on the track as you do in motorbikes. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You know, real gentleman. But to see those bikes where they're on the edge, and the back end's going out and they're still on the throttle. They're not coming off the throttle. It's just incredible skill and bravery.
Yeah, great, huge crowd in the sunshine. What a wonderful way to end the championship. And let's look forward to a lot more.
You don't like watching the interviews. I watched a little bit of the interviews and it made me really sad, but in a positive way that you know, he's thanking his parents for all the remortgages, and I just think, crikey, that really hit hard to me because, you know, sometimes you know, you're not blessed like a lot of people, and you need to make massive sacrifices, or your parents make massive sacrifices. I wish you'd go on to make millions. All these guys are going on to make millions and millions.
They don't in British Superbikes.
They don't. No.
They tried to go to World Superbikes, and that's a tougher place, you know, for some reason. I think it's a different sort of bike setup. It doesn't suit them. But anyway, so Kyle Ride and Tommy Bridewell, we bow to your brilliance and your entertainment and your bravery and your skills. Really, their skills of riding that close for that many laps without knocking each other off was just incredible.
It was
great
phenomenal.
Drama.
A pleasure to watch. Congratulations to Stuart Higgs and all the team at BSB, because they worked so hard and they deserve the recognition that they got over the weekend. But go and watch some races next year. We should definitely go and watch some races and practice what we preach as well. Right, news. First up, I'm going to kick off because this is motor racing, but we've got to say history was made yesterday, overnight Saturday, with SpaceX landing their rocket ship. And we got to mention that because that, talking of excellence and brilliance and just unimaginable things to happen, that was, if you didn't see it, sent a rocket up into space and then it came and landed back on this platform, which is,
as I tweeted, I'm lucky enough to be old enough to have remembered and watched The Man on the Moon, the giant step for mankind. And that was a memory I, still hold to this day. And but to see that, I was virtually in tears for that as much as the Superbikes, the achievement, all those the staff all cheering at SpaceX, and this thing coming down like Thunderbirds, and then what they call it, chopsticks closing in. I thought you were going to talk about America's Cup for a minute. That wonderful achievement that they won the semi-final, but there's a race on now. It could be 4 love down actually as we speak and talk. You're good at finding those things because it's an hour.
We'll come on to America's Cup. I'm very, very kindly being taken back over there again next weekend with Cupra again. So to watch the America's Cup.
It might be all over by then.
I know. Hopefully it won't be all over by then. Proper news? What have you got in the proper news?
Well, just the Sauber seat drags on and on. I'm so bored with it now. Finally, this
Mick Schumacher as well.
No, that's what he's just been added to the list. I mean, please no. Mick's had his chance. I think Valtteri's still a favourite for if Valtteri accept a 1-year contract. I think Valtteri's probably got too much pride, and he's saying no, it's got to be 2 years or 3 years. And I think if Valtteri says okay 1 year, I think Valtteri will get the gig. I'd much rather see one of the Formula 2 boys going up there, but I'm bored with it. And I'm a bit bored with Formula 1 having a 4-week break now. They always complain so much about the congested calendar, and I'm sure they just had 2 races every month. That wouldn't burn everybody out, the team and the crews. I mean, it'd be much better continuity because the championship has been building up so excited. Now McLaren are battling Red Bull and even potentially we've waited. I suppose now we're going to 4 on the trot just about. So I suppose we should. There's 3 on the trot, and there's another huge gap of 3 weeks between Brazil and Las Vegas, the finale. Anyway,
seems to be quite a lot of gaps this year for some reason.
Not Las Vegas, the finale. No, then there's 3 more.
Abu Dhabi.
So we get 3 on the trot, then a 2-week gap, and then 3 more on the trot. So it's a long way to go. Formula 2 as well, of course. But hopefully they'll finally announce this weekend who's in that Sauber. And the only other bit of news, the FIA still plan to take their Prize Gala to Rwanda. Now, I read about this, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago they announced, because apparently Rwanda have offered to make a Grand Prix track, and FIA and Liberty are keen to have an African race to complete their global master plan. Anyway, so they've decided they're still going to go to these awards, despite the World Health Organization advising against travel to Rwanda because of a Marburg virus outbreak. So I can just see
what on earth is a Marburg virus?
I don't know, but it's not that good. If the WHO is saying don't go to Rwanda, and of all those people, sportsmen and Grand Prix drivers alike, they're not going to want to catch a Marburg bug, are they? But
Rwanda sounds amazing. I'd love to visit, but it just seems such an odd place. There's money. There's something going on.
Yeah, the Prize Gala goes to Monte Carlo. Leave it there. It's a traditional Monte Carlo bash, and so it should be.
I love tradition. I love keeping things as they are.
Rwanda, they've pocketed all our money. That's what all the British money for Rwanda. They're spending
700 million. Yes, the Formula 1 track with what we gave them for housing the asylum seekers. So Kyalami, that would have been the last African place to have a Formula 1?
Yeah, great track. I mean, I think they would like to have a Formula 1, but, they can't afford to pay for it. I mean, that's the thing. The country hasn't got that sort of money. I don't know where Rwanda's got the sort of money either, to be honest. But
British government.
Not enough to build a Grand Prix track and pay Liberty 10-year contract. £25 million a year to have the honour, maybe £30 million now, whatever it's up to have the honour of running a Grand Prix. But, anyway.
One last bit of news. Just, I don't like negative news, but poor old Billy Monger has been in the news. he crashed into 3 cars and got a driving ban because
No.
he was a bit of a naughty boy. But Surrey police have said
a superstar of that race around the world, in which he was brilliant at, and it worked out so well. That's a bit of a shame that's all happened now.
It is a shame, but my goodness, what has that lad been through? You imagine losing both your legs, being in any whatever you do, whatever your occupation, whatever your vocation is in life, losing your legs, it's got to play. I'm not saying it's anything to do with mental health, far from it, but I'm just saying that it has to have an effect on your life. But
but he's recovered so well. He's such a bouncy
he has.
character, and that's a real shame that he's had that negativity happen. But he's still young. That's the trouble. These things happen.
He bloody looks old though. He doesn't look young. I think he's Anyway, let's move on because I'm a big fan of his. It sounds like I'm not a fan of his, but let's move on to some proper racing.
Internationally. USA, the US of A had the 2 big events perhaps around the world because there was this brilliant hypercar race. Well, it's GTPs in America, the IMSA race, and there's this famous Petit Le Mans, this 10-hour race that ends in the darkness. I quite like it. Starts like about 2 p.m. and ends at midnight, or starts at midday and ends at 10 p.m. So they race into the dark. IMSA, of course, have got it on their free on their internet channel, which is great, on their website. And it's commentary, this brilliant commentary from John Hindeyhoff and Jeremy Shaw, keeping Hindeyhoff from hovering and getting all of that. They do such a good job commentary preparing it. It's a 53-car field around a 2.5-mile track, which you can tell how crowded it is. It's a wonderful flowing circuit, some brilliant different types of corners, quite difficult to overtake apart from down the long straight and into the chicane at the bottom, the S at the bottom. It's just a spectacle. I didn't see the end because the end UK time about 4 a.m. in the morning. But it was a great race to the end because obviously they had full course yellows. You have to suffer those because they tend to last about 20 minutes, which is a bit of a negative thing about hypercars now. They reshuffle them all, don't they, in their little orders. But anyway, after 9 hours and 45 minutes, René van der Zande, the Dutch driver, took the lead in the Cadillac off. I bet Nick Tandy's upset because he overtook Nick Tandy into turn 1, which is quite a brave bottle job to get inside at turn 1. Tandy and his Porsche. And they held on to win with Sebastian Bourdais, Frenchman, and Scott Dixon, because obviously bringing extra drivers for the 3-driver races, the longer races, the Kiwi. So a great win for Cadillac, especially as they had to go have a pit stop in the opening 20 minutes because they're not boost. I think their torque sensor broke. And this is an IMSA sensor, because though they run hypercars now, you've got these sensors on board provided by the FIA or by IMSA that keep on feeding back in case you're cheating and over boosting your engine. So, but they had to come in and have that reset.
Wow!
I know it's a killer. It's happened before. It's spoiled people's races. They went a lap down and then came all the way from the back of the GTP field to take that lead with 15 minutes to go. So a dramatic win. Of course, it's spectacle all the way. I'm just watching those cars. You can just sit back and have a beer and listen to Hindeyhoff and Shaw telling what's going on. There's a huge traffic jam. The overtaking they do and not clobber each other is amazing. So the Cadillac won for the Porsche. LMP2, of course, there's 4 classes. They were 8th overall, the winner. GT Pro, the Lamborghini won by 2.3 seconds. The Lamborghini team won that class. They got GTD, which is the amateurs. A Ferrari won that. So it's just a hell of a lot going on, basically. Yeah. And lots, because they're just watching the cars going around that huge dip, a great altitude change, or call it altitude when you stay on the ground. What's the word for not altitude?
Undulation. Undulation.
Change of altitude.
Undulation. Undulation.
Yeah. Anyway, great a spectacle. Thanks, Hindeyhoff and his regular Mong team and Jeremy Shaw. And well done to the Cadillac team. NASCAR, the other side, where was British Le Mans down there? NASCAR was down in Charlotte. It weren't that far away, I don't think. I'm a bit lost when I get to America. Of course, lots of pre-event prayers and stuff for the victims of the terrible hurricanes, which we should compliment as well. Awful going on in Florida, and the races all respected those. So the NASCAR race, the last round of deciding when we go from 12 down to 8 in these playoffs. And it was on the Charlotte Roval, which is a little infield circuit, a bit like the Daytona 24-hour race, where they come in off the oval and whittle around. And a little message to Formula One and the rest of the world of circuits. They changed the circuit this year because overtaking was becoming harder and harder to do. So they thought about what they could do. They created a real block pass hairpin, which did improve the overtaking. So they listened to the world. But really, before we actually get to the cup race, it was Shane van Gisbergen was really the hot name of the whole weekend, because this Kiwi that gave up his supercar drive down to Australia, where he was dominant down there, to get this NASCAR dream. And of course, he came over and won his first race, the cup race in the rain at Chicago. So he's already made his name for them. He's now did the first season, the full Infinity season, which is, of course, is the Formula 2 sort of series. And he put it on pole position, and not just for that, but also for the cup race the next day. So 2 pole positions, not in the best known team, this Qualuga team. So incredibly, had 2 pole positions. And he was in for the playoffs for the cup. So he wanted, not for the cup, for the Xfinity, because they had playoffs as well. But he wasn't doing that well because he got taken out in Talladega. He came a 4th and a 5th anyway. So he's battling to get into the playoffs. So this is why it's exciting, the playoffs, because he wasn't leading towards the end. I don't know what troubles he had. But I think he finished, I don't know where I put he finished, 2nd or 3rd. I forget where he finished. We had this wonderful thing where Jesse Love, who was down at the back of the pack, was gaining 3 or 4 places. And like with 1 lap to go, Van Gisbergen was in the 8-car playoffs. But because Jesse Love overtook 3 cars on the last lap, giving himself 3 less points, he overtook Van Gisbergen in the points. And he's gone through to the 8, and Van Gisbergen didn't. So that's the fun of the playoffs. Another little story before we move on to the cup race. Again, NASCAR.
So hang on, how long's left in the playoffs?
Well, now we've got 3 more.
Right,
they get cut from 8 to 4, and then there's 1 race where the person, the 4 that finishes first in the last race, takes the title. But another wonderful NASCAR story, because there's so many cars and so many drivers and so much going on. Parker Kligerman, this guy that's he's done 118 races, hasn't won one since 2009. He was a real young star when he came up through the rankings, but he hasn't won in 118 races. If he wins this race, he's going to get through to the final 8. So he's in the playoffs. And he is 1.5 laps to winning the race. He's in the lead. I'm going to win my first race, and I'm going through the playoffs. And someone crashes. Someone had a brake failure, ploughed into the tyre wall. So he's now got half a lap to go before he takes the white flag. And the white flag means this is the last lap. Whatever happens once you've had the white flag, yellow flag stopping the race, you won the race. He is 2 feet or 2 meters from the finish line. The flagman is waving the white flag. So you can see the white flag. I'm starting the last lap. I cannot now be overtaken until they put the yellows out. And the yellows, it had been quite a long gap between this guy ploughed into the barriers. Kligerman had done half a lap, I'd say. And of course, the flagman doesn't control the yellows. The computer controls the yellows. And once the man's chief safety officer says, right, he probably wasn't looking at the screen himself. He probably didn't even know Kligerman was so near the finish line. So he presses full course yellow. And the yellow lights come on. And then the computers work out where everybody was at the moment that the yellows went on. And because Kligerman was 2 feet short, they had to, pace car came out. Then they go to the green-white checker, final run, and Kligerman couldn't hold on. I forget who overtook him and pushed him to 4th or 3rd. I don't know where he went. But the whole team was, celebrating winning. They're all whooping and duping because they'd seen him go across the line with the white flag being waved. Stories like that. It's all good drama, you see. NASCAR's full of things like that. So going on to the cup race, which actually wasn't that good a race, I have to confess. Going around this rover with 40 cars, they're bouncing their curbs, they're dive bombing at this new block pass hairpin left, lots of wheel banging and stuff. But the actual race was actually a bit stretched out because Van Gisbergen led initially, being chased by Kyle Larson, but on the first restart, Larson got him. Kyle Larson disappeared. The 5 is just in such a dominant form at the moment, it's unbelievable. Van Gisbergen eventually ended up 7th. He slowly went backwards. Yet he got tapped into a spin at the new block pass corner. which didn't help. But again, it's that, the tactics of when to change tyres. So in fact, Van Gisbergen was running second, when the yellows came out 15 minutes before the end of the Xfinity race. But again, it's this huge choice. You either keep track position or you go in for 4 new tyres. Now, the top 6 keep track position, you're looking good, because then the first man with new tyres is 7th. And he's only got 1 lap to get, or 2 laps to get through the pack. But Shane stayed out, and everyone right behind him went in. So you end up starting the restart in the lead still, but everyone behind him had fresh tyres, which is why he ended up 5th, 4th, and lost. Again, why he didn't make the playoffs. So there's 2 reasons he didn't make the playoffs. He made the wrong decision on tyres, but these things happen. So where was it?
So how exciting was it?
Well, it wasn't that exciting. Well, at the end, it was exciting only because it was this battle. The battle for the lead was over. So again, you've got this drama going on in NASCAR because, Kyle Larson's going to win the race, no problem. But the points champion, because of course you have a points champion as well, who's announced before the playoffs begin, Tyler Reddick, he was running 4th early on. He was going to get through because he was on the bubble down at the bottom of the top 8 with Joey Logano. But then he had a moment at the block pass hairpin and clobbered into his own teammate, team boss, Denny Hamlin, who was also struggling to get in, damaged both cars. They were both back in about 24th or 25th place. And they were both out of the points. So I think Hamlin was just about in. But Tyler Reddick wasn't. But he was gradually overtaking 1 more car each lap. Whereas Joey Logano, who was 8th in the points, couldn't overtake anyone else. He was a bit stuck in a rut. And so every lap that went by towards the end of the race, Tyler Reddick got another place. Then all of a sudden he was in and Logano was out, and then the flag went. So there's that. That's what these playoffs brings you, those sort of things. So now Joey Logano, former champion, one of the big superstars, is out of the top 8. Or he was until this morning, when it was announced that the number 48 car of Alex Bowman had been caught for being underweight, excluded from the meeting and excluded from the playoffs.
Wow. So
Logano's in, and Bowman, who was a teammate of Kyle Larson. There are these 4 Hendrick Motorsport Chevys. They're always right up the front. So all 4 were through to the last 8. Pretty incredible achievement. All four of your cars are through. But now Bowman isn't. They might appeal. I don't know whether Hendrick Motorsport would appeal. But apparently they gave them every chance. They said, right, fill up with fuel. You can put a little water in. All the fluids you're allowed to have. And they couldn't get over the weight, whatever they tried. So, drama.
Was drama. So did he lose some bodywork or something in the race?
I don't think so. I know there's usually bits scattering around.
Yeah.
So show business.
So entertainment-wise,
it was still sort of a good 7 out of 10, but not a 9 out of 10.
Rubbish.
So much going. It's still great pictures. They're bouncing. They're hitting. Everyone overtaking.
Mainly 2 abreast, Charlotte, isn't it? It's like the week before was 4.
They were 4. There were 4 abreast going into this new tight left with a huge space around it. It was a real tight hairpin, but it was 4 wide to go around it. So they were often 3 or 4 wide round the hairpin.
All right. Well, so I'm going to. I don't think I think your 7 is wildly optimistic. I think it's more like a 5. But well done with NASCAR.
Well, let's go to Superbike. Let's go to the other extreme, right? Let's go down under to the famous Bathurst 1000 race. And this is where I think a worry where motorsport's going, because Formula One's that way, that if we don't have these yellows that the Americans, they'll throw, there's a can of Coke on the track, full course yellow, all bunch up again and re-race. Because this year's Bathurst 1000 was the boringest race in the history of boring races. Brody Kostecki and his teammate Todd Hazelwood led all the way to a Chevy 123. There was only 1 yellow. And nowadays, with these cars so scientific, and the quality of drivers and car preparation now goes so much deeper in the field. The Bathurst in the old days, they probably had 60 starters, and there was a Joe Fred Bloggs who built his own Ford Falcon in his backyard, that it breaks down, or the drivers crash more because they're not experienced. But the quality is so deep in the supercar. But there's only 25 cars, I think. So they're really good drivers, really well prepared. Nobody broke down. He went the whole race without a caution until I think about how many 27 laps to go, and Matt Payne put his Mustang in the wall at the swoops up the top. And he was the only retirement. So that was the only full course yellow, and they all lined up again. And they were close towards the end, but nobody overtook or made any moves of any significance. So you kind of worry, whether motorsport, this is what Formula One's like a bit, they can't overtake quality, nobody breaks down. Because obviously, people talk about rose-tinted glasses when I watch Jim Clark and Graham Hill and John Surtees, And first one loved it because one car going through a corner was really exciting. You can see the driver's hands on the wheel and the lean of his head and the action. But when some races, there'd only be 3 cars on the lead lap and they'd be 20 seconds apart. So, it wasn't like Formula Ford or Caterham racing when we loved the old Grand Prix. But the other point, you never knew when someone was going to break down. So even until your last lap, you can Jim Clark, is that commentary climb? It's easy changing gears stuff. They were retired. So the suspension was there, or the tension, until they crossed the finish line. But now reliability is so good, the quality of the drivers are so good.
But you say Jim Clark, it was the same. It was the same in the 90s with Mansell and Senna and Prost and these guys.
They broke down a lot. Yeah,
they did break down a lot.
Yeah.
Mansell was dominant in that Williams when I first started watching Formula One, but I think you would always be thinking, oh, he might break down. He might break down. So it wasn't that long ago.
So, and then the spectators, there was some big shunts in qualifying, mind you. Talk about Bathurst, some huge shunts, because, that top of the hill where it's all S's. I'd love to drive around that circuit. I mean, on your own, it's going to be one of the most challenging, tracks in the world. But there's only 2 places to overtake, 2 or 3, end of the main straight, the last corner or the first corner. And so when drivers are so equal.
I know we just spoke about Brands Hatch, but it is very underrated how good it is, and the undulation, unless you see it, you don't notice it on TV.
But as soon as you get up to GT3 level, you can't overtake. Anything above, anything with aero grip.
I get it.
It's a shame that I would have put much more restrictions on the cars. I saw a picture. It was a DTM race, I think. I saw it on television. They had an old 911 as either as a safety car or a parade car, and it was this little tiny narrow toy. And behind it was these GT3 Porsches with these huge wings and bulging wheel arches. And you thought, that's why they can't overtake anymore. So, yes, I'm sorry, down in Australia. The Bathurst one, I didn't watch any of it. I've only read the reports, but I have no doubt that had I been watching it, I would have nodded off very early on. But Brody Kostecki, of course, the reigning champion, who's missed the 2 rounds of controversy with his team. Anyway, he's back winning. So there you have it. A dull Bathurst. Notes below from anyone down in Australia to defend that decision.
SuperFormula Japan.
Just mentioning, we haven't followed it all year, but just because Nick de Vries is out there. So it's always interesting when you get a European driver to see how they match against the Japanese top shots. It was a double header at Fuji. But Nicky qualified 18th and 17th and had 2 11th place finishes. Although the second race, he actually finished 8th on the road. Had a bit of a wheel bang with someone, got a 5-second penalty. So, Nick de Vries, who we all rave about, should he still be in Formula One, shows what quality there is in the Japanese driver. And Sho Subo had 2 wins. He hasn't won for 4 years, but he dominated Fuji this weekend and goes to the championship lead with 2 races to go. Mention for poor Juju Noda, this girl that's trying so hard to get into the rankings. She's 18 years old now. There's so much press made of her, 5-6 years ago when she drove a Formula 3 car. Age 12, is she the next Grand Prix driver of the future? They build these girls up. But she qualifies virtually last every time. She's 2 seconds off of the pace. But bravely going ahead, finishing at the back. Otherwise, I don't know much about SuperFormula this year.
And SuperFormula's pretty much set Formula 2. Is that right?
Yeah, but they're quicker, almost as quick as a Formula 1 car. And they've got a lot of...
Wow.
They keep on adding, more aero. It's a one-make formula. They want them to be as fast as a Formula 1 car. And then they go round and round in line of stern, because they can't overtake.
Can't overtake. What's Suzuka like? Because it goes to Suzuka in a few weeks,
very
in about a month's time.
You can't overtake there at all. That's worse than the other track. I mean, apart from down to turn 1 with a bit of DRS. I'm not sure that SuperFormula even has DRS.
I might have an invitation for you. Watch your space. We'll firm something up over the next week or so.
Suzuka.
Let's see. Yes, let's see. That brings back some memories of your racing over in Japan, wouldn't it?
Yes, wonderful. I raced it all, but of course they changed Fuji. Fuji used to be a real super speedway, but they put too many corners and jinks and turns in it to make it harder to overtake. But Suzuka hasn't changed a little bit. A little bit it's changed since I raced.
Did they have the big wheel there or not when you were?
Oh, big
racing?
wheel's always been there. Yeah, big wheel. Pretty sure. Because it was always a fairground. We used to stay in the hotel at Suzuka and walk down to the racetrack in the mornings through the fun fair with all the kids and families going round as we walked down in our race suits.
Were you a big deal back in the day over in Japan? Did people know you or not? Because you would have been no disrespect to Japanese, but you would have been tall.
Yeah, but there were lots of us, you see. There were 10 to 15 to 20 drivers by the time I finished racing Group C in the Sports Car Championship there. There were a lot of gaijins, foreign drivers, which made it so attractive. I did Formula 2 there I did about 4 races left too, mainly in the Group C sports cars. But yeah, we were super popular. Autographs. Oh, they're fanatics. They're such amazing race fans. Yeah. So the other thing was back to bikes, really. Any other thing last weekend of major thing was Superbikes in Estoril, where some
Top Brack Razgatz
never heard of him.
How did he get on this weekend?
Well, he's sort of won 2 out of the 3 races, and he led the middle race, the Superpole, the short race, until about a millimetre before the finish line, when Nicola Bollega in the factory Ducati nailed it on the line. The closest superbike finish in the world of superbikes ever. 3-1. I think it was 3-1. What 003? 3/100ths of a second. And Top Rank, it was mainly chose the wrong tyre. They had 2 tyre choices, and the Ducati's wrong. Well, he was on a different tyre choice, and Beluga just had the drag out the last corner. Estoril. British riders, Alex Lowes had a 4th and a 6th. Jonathan Ray had a 5th and a 2nd and a 4th. Not a 2nd, a 22nd. Wasn't it a bad middle race? Yeah, but still, Top Rank still hasn't won the championship. I don't know how many points they get because he missed 6 rounds and he won 2 weekends after his injury. So I think they got.
Where does he go next year, Tiff?
I think he still seems to be Superbikes. Everyone dreams of putting him into a MotoGP bike, but all those rides have gone. And traditionally, there hasn't been an automatic promotion from Superbikes to MotoGPs, and some Superbike champions that have tried it have struggled big time to adapt to a MotoGP bike. So, yeah, it's funny. It's never been an obvious transition. A lot of MotoGP riders come down to Superbikes to earn a living and keep going, like Bautista and others that are doing it now. They've been MotoGP in the past, but they don't usually go up from Superbikes.
Well, you're not going to get a top ride because they want to keep the top drivers. So if you're going to go in mid to bottom pack in terms of opportunity of the team you're with and the bike you're with, then you stay at Superbikes where you're the golden boy. But
they've got those satellite. They've got those satellite teams. The 4 satellite Ducatis and 4 satellite the private. Yeah, but no, I don't know. It's funny. Everyone's talking about it. Someone must have the plan.
That's the only time I ever hear the Turkish anthem is when I watch Superbikes.
Top rank. So anyway, that was it. So a great weekend, but really nothing better than the British Superbike race at Brands Hatch.
What's up next weekend? Let me
get you
a
back again. Yeah,
out.
the big boys are back. The Formula 1 boys. They're off to Circuit of Americas, Formula 2 as well. We've got some more track limits there to entertain our commentators, and there's some glued in gravel at a couple of corners to try and put them off. Otherwise, all the penalties. So we'll see how that works. Great spectacle. It's a great track, Circuit Americas. So there should be some good racing. And of course, the battle for the crowns and the championship is going. So it's great. You've sort of forgotten about it. So we've got to build up our excitement again for Formula 1. MotoGP, they're in... where they are. Where did I write down they are? I've lost my thing. MotoGP are Australia. They head off down to Australia, don't they, now for the continuing of their championship, if I've got that right. Yes, Australia.
Very intimate, yeah.
Couldn't read my own writing. And that,
not Phillip Island. They're going to the mainland, are they?
I don't know. Hopefully it's Phillip Island. No, I think it is at Phillip Island, isn't it? Hopefully it's at Phillip Island. Whatever, because it's the Martin Bagnaia battle goes on. World Rally Championship has a European round. which they haven't had before. I think it's Germany, Austria, and Poland, or somewhere down there in the middle of Europe. They go through various stages. So that with a battle between the two Hyundais to see if Neudel can finally win his world championship, or whether Tanak is going to steal it off him, which would be unfriendly for a teammate. Rovanpera,
especially as a part-time teammate.
Yeah, well, Tanak isn't now. He's been full-time. So
true.
Rovanpera has announced, I think he's coming back. He's confirmed he's doing a full season. He's had his time out and enjoyed winning some Porsche races on circuits and doing a bit of drifting and stuff. So it'd be good to see Rovanpera back. NASCAR, as I said, starts the 3 rounds that will cut it from 8 to 4, and they start at Las Vegas. A bit of gambling around the oval of Las Vegas and not the racetrack that the Formula One boys will end up at later this year. Good. That's it.
Meanwhile, New Zealand, they're probably 4-0 up now, but we'll find out this time next week.
Have you looked? Now I've got to look now. Where's your phone?
I hope it gets close. At least I hope it gets close and Great Britain win some. That'll be such a travesty if they don't. It won't be a travesty. People are like, who cares?
America's Cup. Ooh, I don't dare look. Results.
It's still hard. So let me tell you this whilst you're looking at that.
4-0. 4-0.
Oh, 4-0. It's all over there. We need 3 more.
4-0.
Great. So the BBC were offered the footage free of charge, no cost, to cover any of the America's Cup, and you can see it now. It's just if you scroll right the way down on the BBC app, you can find it on the Sport app, but that's about it. But what a shame. 4-0. Oh my goodness. The fat lady's not singing, but she's very close to it. She's having a little gargle.
Do re mi. Got to do the range rating.
Thanks for joining. See you next week.
Cheers. Bye.
Tell us below whether we should do more or less of his NASCAR and all around the world, or just focus on the UK stuff. We like all around the world, but you let us know what you like. See you next week.